You were a bride whose groom ran off in front of everyone, so you announced on the spot that you'd replace him with a new one. Even the most unruly man in all of Kyoto, Luke, walked on stage without a fight. He even slipped on the ring you handed him, so everyone assumed it was just a deal to save face. What I didn't know was that this reckless-looking wedding had actually been his carefully laid plan after 5 years of secretly loving me. On the wedding day, the groom escaped. I announced a new one right then. "Luke, marry me." A low chuckle drifted up from the audience. The man crushed out his cigarette. "If you insist, Miss Jennifer." The entire venue went silent. A marriage alliance between the Smiths and the Delaney's, no wonder the whole city was in an uproar. People joked that in Kyoto, even a falling brick could hit a government official, and the Smiths and Delaney's were the most powerful of them all. So when news of the alliance broke, folks felt envy, yes, but also that it was inevitable. Everyone knew Jason had always carried a girl like a sacred moon in his heart. They'd been tangled up since high school, though she was just an ordinary girl. Things ended when she went abroad, leaving Jason depressed for months. We all thought enough time had passed. Jason had even agreed to the engagement. Everyone assumed he'd moved on until he shocked the world by running away. The MC on stage was sweating through his suit, glancing at the only person who could salvage the scene. "Miss Jennifer, what do you think we should—" I heard him, but didn't turn. I could see my father and Jason's father glaring from the front row. Jason had slapped both families in the face. I didn't need to lift a finger, someone would deal with him. I shut my eyes. Jason had turned me into the laughingstock of Kyoto. My pride would never allow me to bow my head for a man. Fine. Replace him. Replace the groom? The moment the thought formed, I instinctively looked toward the doors. Luke. He looked annoyed, a cigarette between his fingers, burning down but never smoked. Poor Kyle beside him was already tearing up from the smoke. He laughed awkwardly. "Luke, man, the way you look right now, people would think someone stole your wife." It was meant as a joke. But then Luke murmured, "Yeah, a beat. Which is why I'm deciding whether to steal her back." Pfft. Kyle spat his drink everywhere. He didn't even clean up, just stared at Luke in horror. Seeing Luke's eyes glued to the bride, Kyle felt his own soul leave his body. "See, come on, Luke? Bro? You serious?" Under the table, Kyle was already thinking about what wrestling move he'd need to tackle him with if Luke really charged the stage. Luke looked mildly disgusted, dabbing imaginary droplets off his shirt with a napkin. "What do you think?" "What do I think? I think you're insane." Kyle's gut twisted. This ancestor of his acted on impulse more often than he breathed. Hey, don't be rash. They say you should never wreck a wedding, bad karma, man. Let's not be that guy." But Luke clearly wasn't listening. His phone buzzed on his knee. Luke glanced at it, and a smile surfaced in his eyes. Kyle grabbed his pant leg in panic. Bro, what are you doing? This is the Smith-Delaney wedding. If you're gonna start something, at least pick a different battlefield." Luke lifted his leg, shaking him off, wearing the brightest smile he'd shown in days. Going to steal the bride. At that exact moment, the bride on stage spoke. "Luke, marry me." Kyle's worldview shattered. "Wait, what? How long have you two been doing this behind my back?" Luke arched a brow, lips curving. "If you insist, Miss Jennifer." The room erupted. No one had ever witnessed a groom swap mid-wedding. The only two happy people in the room were likely Luke and Uncle Tony. Under Luke's hand, the Dawson family had risen so fast they were poised to surpass both the Smiths and Delaney's. For me, this was the best possible move. The only problem was I didn't know whether Luke would actually agree. But the moment I saw him step onto the stage, my tightly wound nerves finally loosened. Murmurs rose from the audience. I followed the sound. It was Jason's father. "Jack, I know Jason messed up, but you can't just switch grooms on the spot. Why don't we postpone the ceremony? Once I find Jason, I'll make him apologize to Jennifer personally." My father only snorted. It was Uncle Tony who spoke. "Oh, John, that's nonsense. A fine lady deserves a fine match. Since your Jason doesn't appreciate her, someone else clearly does. There's only one girl in this generation of our family, of course. Everyone's keeping an eye on her. You!" Jason's father was speechless. The entire Dawson clan was shameless, apparently. It ran in the bloodline. Uncle Tony shrugged and flashed us a thumbs up. Luke returned the gesture. 2 fingers to his temple, flicked outward, arrogant, reckless, and dazzling. I couldn't help a soft laugh, the weight in my chest dissolving. I nodded at the MC. You may continue. Why, yes, of course, he stammered, scrambling to follow the program. Music rose. I took Luke's arm and smiled. A fake marriage. You just have to play along. A year from now, we'll divorce. He paused for just a fraction of a step, then walked on as if nothing happened. His familiar teasing voice brushed my ear. Miss Jennifer is certainly generous. Maybe it was my imagination. But those last 2 words sounded like he was grinding them out of his teeth. I glanced at him, puzzled. You don't want to? His pace slowed, like if I said one rejection, he'd let me choose another groom right away. Luke shut his eyes, then covered my hand with his, holding on as if afraid I'd slip away. Of course I do. If Miss Jennifer is willing to risk her reputation, then I should gladly oblige. Mr. Luke, whether in good times or bad, in wealth or poverty, in sickness or health, in joy or in sorrow, do you take Miss Jennifer as your wife to cherish and protect her? Luke didn't answer immediately. He stared at me for a long moment before taking the mic. I do. The words landed like a hammer on my heart. Time for the rings. The bridesmaid presented them. But Luke didn't take them. Instead, he slipped off the pinky ring from his left hand and slowly, deliberately pushed it onto my ring finger. The metal was still warm. I instinctively looked up at him. He was lowered over me, rare seriousness on his face. I flinched, stunned. I'd never seen him like this. I picked up the men's ring to put it on him. Wait, he said, dodging. I'm not wearing his ring. Luke had been spoiled since he was a child. He always wanted the best and never tolerated hand-me-downs. I lowered my hand helplessly. Then what? The ceremony had to go on. We needed rings. Luke pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket. It's fine. I brought one. The crowd collectively gasped. First time seeing a groom swap. First time seeing a groom bring his own ring. Every gaze swung toward Jason's father. He scoffed. So you came prepared, didn't you? Luke's father pressed a hand to his forehead, helpless. No one had expected his son to be this eager to get married. Still, he had to save face. Better to come prepared than run away at the last minute. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry as I slid the ring onto Luke's finger. The ceremony concluded, and Luke stood beside me, whispering in barely contained excitement. Good thing I picked a nice one. I followed his gaze. It was nice, clean, sleek lines carved into a simple band, resting perfectly on his long, defined fingers. It made the moment feel complete. The MC finally breathed again. This wedding was mercifully over. His last line came out almost cheerfully. Now the groom may kiss his bride. I froze, watching Luke lean in toward me. I lifted my hand to stop him, but he pressed it to his chest. Luke! Before I could finish, the doors burst open again. Jennifer! The original groom Jason stormed inside. All eyes snapped toward him. All except Luke's. He kept moving toward me. His face drew closer. His breath brushing warm against my cheek, every bit of it, crossing every line I had. Jennifer? He murmured. Don't look at him. Look at me. Instinctively, my eyes locked with his. Something dark surged behind them. Suddenly, his lips tilted into a smile, and he closed the distance. A fleeting touch, warm and gone in an instant. So quick I almost doubted it happened. But judging by everyone else's reaction, they didn't. Jennifer! Jason roared again. Luke snorted, turning lazily. Young Master Jason, lower your voice. Don't scare my wife. Jason's face darkened. He marched up the stage like we'd been cheating behind his back. Luke stepped forward, shielding me. Say what you came to say. He slapped away Jason's reaching hand. Keep your hands to yourself. Jason sucked in a breath, forcing his anger down. Jennifer, I was wrong to be late. I'm sorry. We can continue the ceremony. I crossed my arms, staring coldly at him. Before I could shift my weight, Luke reacted faster. His hand slid to my waist, steadying me. He bent slightly, whispering, Feet hurt? His unexpected attentiveness stunned me, but I didn't push him away. Leaning lightly against him, I watched Jason stumble through excuses. He finished his explanation only to find that we hadn't been listening at all. We were wrapped up in our own little world. Jennifer, what's going on between you and Luke? Luke turned, impatience flashing into open hostility. Are you done? If you're done, get lost. I gently tugged Luke's wrist. Like a snarling dog meeting its owner, he begrudgingly stepped aside. I walked out from behind him. Jason, our engagement is canceled. I don't care what your reasons are. This farce ends now. I turned to leave. The heels were killing me. A strong arm wrapped around my waist as I descended the steps. Passing Jason, Luke's voice drifted out, slow and unapologetic. Move! You're blocking my wife! My steps faltered for half a breath. I glanced back at him, his face perfectly calm, then looked forward again. It hit me only then. Luke had been calling me wife. And, just like that, news exploded across Kyoto. The Delaney heiress switched grooms on stage. Luke swooped in and stole the bride away. Delaney, Dawson, and Smith fell into a tense standoff. Rumors spread like wildfire, but I, at the center of it, was troubled for one reason. Luke, at dawn, my doorbell wouldn't stop ringing. I opened the door and there he was. My eyes drifted from his face, down to the suitcase at his feet. I arched a brow and leaned against the doorframe, silently questioning him. Luke simply reached out, pushed me inside, and using his foot hooked the door shut behind us. I had never seen someone invade a home this boldly. He dragged the suitcase in without shame and asked, "Which room is ours?" "Luke." I stopped him as he wandered around admiring everything. "I thought I told you, fake marriage, I know," he said, fiddling with one of my picture frames. "Then why are you here? Even a fake marriage needs appearances. What kind of couple lives separately after the wedding? What would our parents think? What would everyone else think? You'd be announcing to the world that it's fake." His logic worked on me, but then, that's my room. I slapped away the hand reaching toward my bedroom and steered him toward the guest room. "This is yours." And just like that, Luke and I began our half-cohabitation. He buried himself in Dawson Group affairs. I ran my own company. Coincidentally, our company buildings stood across the street from each other. Word of our marriage spread through the upper circles but wasn't public yet. Employees watched us come and go together every day until rumors blossomed. My assistant entered while I was on the phone with home. My mother was lecturing me. "Jennifer, when are you bringing Luke home for dinner? Have you two gotten the marriage certificate yet? I know you're busy, but you must get it." Not getting the certificate is no different from fooling around. I was exhausted. She'd been nagging me about the certificate for weeks. Seeing my assistant waiting with documents, I gave up resisting and agreed. After hanging up, I caught my assistant's uneasy look. "What is it?" After a hesitation, she finally relayed the company gossip. I was startled Luke had subtly changed so many of my habits lately. My morning iced Americano had been replaced with milk, because coffee hurts your stomach. Meals delivered to the office at fixed times. Pickups in the morning and at night. What began as discomfort slowly turned to routine under Luke's persistent meddling. My assistant's reminder made me realize within a month, I'd grown used to having him around. I even found myself about to text him. "When do you have time to get the—" I paused, then deleted it. But his message arrived instantly, like he'd been waiting. "What's wrong?" A strange feeling rose inside me, flooding the rational part of my mind. Something I'd never felt before. My mom asked when we're getting the certificate. For the first time, instead of giving a direct answer, I used someone else as an excuse. "Tomorrow. Let's skip work." It was ridiculous, two CEOs skipping work to get a marriage certificate. I couldn't help smiling. Catching my assistant's glance, I cleared my throat. "Push tomorrow's schedule back." My assistant blinked. "Is something happening?" My phone buzzed again. A message lit the screen. "Come down." "I'm picking you up," I replied okay, then looked at my assistant with a rare, softened expression. "We're getting the certificate tomorrow." Her wide-eyed shock was almost funny. I couldn't resist teasing. "With the man you've all been gossiping about." I grabbed my bag, but before the elevator arrived, someone called out, "Jennifer." I turned, it was Jason. I frowned as the receptionist approached in distress. "Miss Jennifer, I told Mr. Jason you weren't here, but I waved her off. No one could stop him anyway." She sighed in relief and returned to her desk. "What do you want?" Jason looked terrible. Clearly the last few days hadn't been kind. The company was being squeezed by both Delaney and Dawson, and at home his father was giving him hell. "You and Luke." I pressed the elevator button and turned as soon as I heard Luke's name. "What about us?" Jason gave me a strange look. I didn't bother guessing. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside, ignoring his theatrics. Just before the doors shut, he added, "Did you know Luke has someone he's been in love with for 5 years?" My hand froze. I looked up at him. Jason smirked. "He didn't tell you?" My silence was answer enough. "He's no different from me, Jennifer. And you still want to marry him?" "Sure. The Delaney's helped Dawson rise, but did you know my lateness at the wedding? Luke had a hand in that, too." I hit the close button. As the doors slid shut, my reflection stared back cold and unreadable. I hated it, but Jason had hit a nerve. One Bai Shan Shan was enough. I didn't need another ghostly true love hanging over my head. Benefits were reliable. Emotions weren't. My phone lit up with Luke's message. "Jennifer, are you a snail? Why aren't you down here yet?" This time I didn't reply. I tossed my phone into my bag. The elevator didn't stop at the lobby. It went down to the parking garage. I didn't get into Luke's car. I drove myself home. Halfway there, since it was still early, I called my assistant. "Keep tomorrow's schedule. Don't postpone anything." And my fingers tapped the wheel. "Look into Luke's past relationships." After hanging up, Luke called. "Where are you?" He must have realized I left alone. "Busy." For a moment, he was speechless. "Are you coming home?" Irritation simmered in my chest. I pressed the accelerator. "We'll see." I hung up, jerked the wheel, and headed for the mountain roads. My way of venting stress had never changed speeding. The car I drove was ordinary, used for daily commuting, nowhere near the performance of the sports cars in the Delaney garage. The faster I went, the calmer I became. After several loops along the mountainside, I stopped at the summit, pulled a cigarette from the glove compartment, and lit it. The ember glowed red. Who would have imagined the refined Delaney heiress like this, speeding, smoking, breaking rules? I took only a few drags before letting it burn on its own. My phone rang. Julia. "Jennifer, where are you?" "Heading home from work." "We haven't hung out in forever. Come out." I put out the cigarette, agreed, and drove to one night. The valet recognized my license plate and took my keys immediately. Before I even stepped inside, Julia yanked me away. "You came dressed like this?" "You're totally off theme." I looked down at my blouse and skirt. "Came straight from work. Didn't change." Julia laughed, eyes narrowing in amusement. She waved her hand. "No worries. I've got plenty here." One night was Julia's club members only. Very private. The kind of place where everyone belonged to the same circle. She dragged me into her lounge and pulled a dress from her wardrobe. "New arrival. First piece. I haven't even worn it yet." I took it and went into the bathroom. Only after changing did I realize the trick of the dress. The front was fine, but the back one deep slit all the way down, exposing my entire back. A low whistle came from the doorway, Julia. "Miss Jennifer has a great figure." I ignored her and casually smoothed my hair. In heels, I followed her to the booth. On the dance floor, bodies moved wildly, under pounding bass and flickering lights, prodding at people's last bit of restraint. A few strangers recognized me, their widened eyes full of disbelief. I glanced past them indifferently, and they immediately straightened up. Not far away, Kyle squinted, checked twice, then shakily dialed Luke's number. Luke answered, annoyed, ready to snap. "Speak," Kyle swallowed. "Luke." "Hmm?" His tone lifted slightly, one more pointless word and he'd hang up. "I saw Jennifer at the club." "Who did you say?" The sudden drawl made Kyle jump. "Jennifer! Miss Jennifer! Your wife!" A few seconds of silence. Kyle checked the screen, thank God. The call was still connected. "Where?" Two soft words. Too gentle. But Kyle alone knew the storm beneath them. After giving the location, Kyle heard Luke's final order. "Watch her." I lounged on the sofa, lazily sipping my drink. People nearby stayed sensible and kept their distance, but there were always fools who wanted to try their luck. A hand suddenly blocked mine as I reached for my drink. I looked up along that hand to find a clean-cut face. "Girls shouldn't drink so much when they're out. It's bad for you." Propping my chin on my hand, I eyed him up and down as if amused. His acting wasn't bad, but he still slipped. The greed and intent in his eyes were impossible to miss. Julian noticed my irritation and hurried over to shoo him away. "Handsome, she's married. Stop hovering." Once he was gone, she flopped down beside me. "Where's your husband?" "Who?" "Luke, obviously." The moment she said his name, Julia perked up. Never thought you'd actually marry him. I've hated Jason for ages. Good thing you switched husbands. She smacked her forehead. Oh, right. Did you know he went to our high school? Wild, right? Same high school. I rolled the words on my tongue, taking a sip of alcohol. Then do you know who Luke used to like? Julia frowned, thinking hard. I kinda forgot. I'll help you ask around later. She noticed my calm expression contrasted with the steady flow of drinks and gently probed. Why, you think he's hiding something? I shook my head. I didn't plan to tell her about this. Okay. If you don't want to talk, I won't push. I'm gonna go dance. I nodded, watching her leave. I could drink well, but shot after shot was catching up with me. Another hand reached toward my glass. I snapped. I'm married. I'm not keeping some boy toy. The words were sharp things I normally wouldn't say. The hand paused, but still tried to take my glass. I lifted my eyes and saw Luke. He stood beside the booth, still in the suit he'd worn all day, including the tie he'd stubbornly made me pick for him. Now it hung loosely around his neck, jaw clenched tight as he wrestled with himself. His formal clothes clashed with the neon-lit club, earning stares. So you do remember you're married, Jennifer. He laughed coldly, lifting my glass and downing it in one go. A thin trail of liquor slid down his jaw, raw, untamed. His tone set me off. I stood and poked his chest, leaning in deliberately. So what? I met his eyes and pushed the last 3 words out slowly. A fake marriage. I turned to leave. The car was driven, the drinks were drunk, and I had an early meeting tomorrow. I didn't make it 2 steps before a cool voice cut through the music. Stop! I ignored him, flipping my hair and walking on. A coat fell onto my shoulders. Then the floor dropped. Luke had lifted me clean off my feet. I frowned, smacking his shoulder. What are you doing? Luke's lips curled into a cold grin. Taking you home. A beat. To settle this. My eyes widened slightly, legs shifting. Put me down. He ignored me, carrying me out as if I weighed nothing. No. He hauled me straight to the car and buckled my seatbelt himself. As he leaned in, he paused, frowning. You smoked? The faint scent on my neck had given me away. I didn't answer. His face darkened. He drove in silence, taking me back home. The alcohol faded, and my mind spun through divorce logistics. I didn't notice that not once did I consider marrying someone else. Luke entered the passcode and pushed the door open. I stood at the threshold, watching him move around like he lived here. Arms crossed, I said. Move out. He froze mid-step in the kitchen, turning toward me. Give me a reason. I avoided his eyes and walked into the living room. No reason. The engagement is over. We haven't registered anyway. As for the stock fluctuations, don't worry, I initiated this, so I'll have legal handle compensation with your company. Luke cut in. You think I need your money? I paused, then continued. Then if you have other requests, tell my assistant. I poured myself water, fingers gripping the cold glass to stay rational. Let's end this arrangement here. Luke lowered his head and chuckled a dark, shadowed smile. You say when it starts, and you think you can say when it ends? No. He lifted his gaze, sharp pressure rolling off him. In that moment, I realized the man before me wasn't the playful Luke I'd seen for a month. He was the Dawson heir, the president of Dawson Group, never someone to be ordered around. His phone rang. He checked it, annoyed, but answered anyway. Say something useful. Whatever the caller said made his face grow stormier. When he finally hung up, he let out a cold laugh. I was wondering why you suddenly bailed on getting the certificate tomorrow. He stepped closer, voice low and magnetic against my ear. You ran into Jason. I turned my head away from his breath, face cooling as Jason's words returned. What makes you any different from him? Luke frowned. What does that mean? I stepped back, out of his reach. Jason had Bai Shanshan. And you? Why did you give up the person you liked for years just to agree to marry me? You even schemed against Jason to break our engagement. My questions caught him off guard. He fell silent, thinking, expression shifting into something complicated. He turned his head away, half smiling, half exasperated, coughing once before steadying himself. So that's why you went speeding, smoking, drinking? I blinked, astonished he knew. Seeing my reaction, he couldn't hide his amusement. His bad mood evaporated instantly. Yeah, Jason was my plan. He shrugged carelessly, wild as ever. But Jennifer, he stepped closer, eyes never leaving mine. Didn't know you liked me this much. Jealous already? His words knocked the breath out of me. Panic flickered across my face, like he'd poked straight through the cloud of frustration I'd been holding in, puncturing it like an overfilled balloon. Luke understood immediately. He relaxed, patience settling over him. It's fine. We'll take it slow. He tilted his head, that familiar, playful smile returning. But I can tell you the person I liked? You know her. Faces of Kyoto's unmarried socialites flashed across my mind. Instinctively, I compared myself to them, wondering what kind of woman could hold Luke's attention for years. Not knowing which one he meant, confusion crossed my face. Luke sobered, just like he had on the wedding stage when he said, I do. Jennifer, I've liked you for a long time. His blunt confession kept me awake all night. My heartbeat never settled. I tossed and turned until Julia's words came to mind. I grabbed my phone and messaged her. She replied instantly with an okay. Only then did I relax enough to sleep. The next morning, Luke was the one who woke me. He strode into my bedroom, holding a white blouse. Lack of sleep left me grumpy. What are you doing? Luke, however, looked thrilled. My sour expression didn't faze him. He held up the blouse, then pointed to his own. Only then did I notice he was wearing a white shirt too. What's going on? Luke spoke as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. We're getting the certificate. You agreed yesterday. Walking out of the civil affairs office with Luke, marriage certificate in hand, I was still dazed. Looking at the photo of us leaning close together, smiling, I let out an involuntary laugh. Dragged out of bed early in the morning to get married, this had never, ever appeared in any of my carefully planned schedules, yet it felt like a wonderful surprise. My phone buzzed. It was my assistant. Miss Jennifer, where are you? I glanced at the Civil Affairs Bureau beside me. The marriage office. A stunned gasp came through the line. You got married? But didn't you say today's schedule wouldn't be postponed? Only then did I remember my fully booked agenda. Unbelievable. I sighed helplessly. Ever since meeting Luke, my life had been full of unexpected detours. Fortunately, I didn't mind them. Luke tactfully opened the passenger door and gestured. After you. I rode back to the company with him. I thought he'd drop me at the entrance, but he drove straight into the underground parking lot. I shot him a look. He was perfectly calm. Seriously? First day of marriage and you want me to sleep alone already? I laughed. He grabbed my bag and followed behind me like an assistant. Not that anyone would mistake him for one. Good morning, Miss Jennifer. Miss Jennifer, others recognized Luke as well. Our companies worked closely together. Mr. Luke, in rare good spirits. Luke nodded politely. The employee stared, stunned. The proposal isn't finished yet. Luke waved a hand. I'm not here for that. Then you're... Luke pointed at me. I'm dropping my wife off at work. The man's eyes went wide as he looked at me. Then Luke. You, Miss Jennifer? I gave an awkward smile. After getting the marriage certificate, Luke strutted around like a peacock, even cornering the parking attendant to brag for 5 whole minutes. Under all the curious stares, I finally nodded, confirming it. Just then, the elevator arrived. I pulled Luke in, shutting out the shocked whispers outside. Luke still looked dissatisfied. Why are you walking so fast? Embarrassed of me? I stared at his annoyed face. The parking attendant was old and couldn't recognize him, yet Luke chatted with him like an old friend, forcing him to give congratulations multiple times before letting him go. My look said everything. Luke cleared his throat and looked away, just asserting my place. You wouldn't understand. I didn't, but I didn't stop him either. Maybe I was even indulging him. I stepped out of the elevator and into my office. My assistant handed over the stack of documents piled up from the morning. Luke followed inside and sat on the sofa. I looked up from the folder. Bring Mr. Luke an iced Americano. Light ice. Feeling his stare burning a hole through the top of my head, I added, please. After a month of cohabiting, Luke had bulldozed his way into every corner of my life. He changed my habits and etched himself into my mind. Another knock on the door. Come in. I expected company documents. Instead, Luke's assistant entered. The 2 assistants stared at each other awkwardly. But Luke casually accepted his company's files and started working right there in my office. Completely unprecedented. 2 massive machines required constant tuning, and here they were, working side by side. I flipped through my papers, glancing at Luke's focused, serious expression, and lost myself for a moment. People say a man concentrating on his work is the most attractive, no lie there. Without his usual mischief, Luke looked dangerously sexy. "If you keep looking at me, I won't be able to focus," he spoke, and I snapped my gaze away, a soft laugh drifting from him as if mocking my failed subtlety. I pressed the intercom. My assistant entered, and I handed her the signed documents. She took out an invitation. "What's this? Your alma mater, Yunzhe High School, is hosting its centennial celebration?" I opened it. My name was written inside. My fingertips brushed the print as I remembered what Julia had said. Luke and I had gone to the same high school, yet I had no memory of him. I looked at Luke's assistant. Did Mr. Luke get one too? When he confirmed it, curiosity bloomed inside me. "Are you going?" Luke met my eyes like he'd been waiting for the question. "Of course. On the day of the celebration." Luke and I arrived together. He was a year above me, and the person who came to greet us was his former homeroom teacher. The teacher clapped Luke's shoulder, then looked at me. "And this is?" Luke slipped an arm around my shoulders. "My wife." The pride in his voice stunned the teacher into silence for a few seconds. Well, not bad, kid." I had a speech to give, so I separated from Luke. In the auditorium, after finishing my talk, we moved to the Q&A. "If possible, could I work at Delaney Group someday?" a bright-eyed girl asked eagerly. I nodded. "We welcome anyone with ability and ambition." The mic passed on, and the students started making noise. A boy stood up, nudged by his friend too shy to speak. His friend grabbed the mic. "He wants to ask if you have a boyfriend." The room erupted. I looked toward the boy, his face flushing crimson. Before I could respond, a hand took the microphone. "Sorry. Excuse me. She's married. I'm her husband." Luke appeared out of nowhere, flashing his ring. Groans filled the room, boys and girls alike. Everyone loved gossip, and discussions exploded until the teachers had to intervene. "How did you two meet? Did you know each other in high school?" "Here? In our high school?" Luke raised a brow and nodded. "That's why you should study hard. Otherwise, you won't even get a wife." He paused, remembering where he was. Also don't date early." "Senior, is it true?" someone asked me directly. "It's true." I set down the mic, and the room instantly detonated, chatter roaring like an explosion. Luke dragged me away from the chaos, ignoring the teacher calling after us. His face lit with a youthful, triumphant grin. He pulled me to the rooftop, unlocking it with a key from God knows where. The unused rooftop was overgrown with weeds and vines. A small storage room stood nearby. The place felt familiar, tugging at my memories. A spark flared. Luke lit a cigarette. His first time smoking in front of me. He cupped the flame, brows furrowed, cigarette between his lips. His Adam's apple bobbed with each breath. My throat tickled unexpectedly. I lifted a hand. Luke tapped out another cigarette and handed it to me. Without a lighter, I leaned in, touching the tip to his. He lowered his eyes to me. I raised mine to him. The ember glowed between us. And then I remembered. This rooftop, this storage room, I used to come here whenever I felt suffocated. It was quiet. No one would see me smoke. I didn't smoke much, but I couldn't let anyone see. As the Delaney heiress, I enjoyed inherited privilege but also carried the weight of image and responsibility. Excellent grades, gentle elegance, flawless composure, this was the face I had to present. I'd been raised to believe that, but seeing companies try to use their children to curry favor with my family always made me nauseous. After one such incident, I'd come here alone, lighting a cigarette in the dark to breathe for a moment. Even then, the practiced ease of it startled me. A wisp of smoke escaped my lips, and I heard a faint rustling beside me. "Who's there?" A shadow shifted near the wall. "Sorry." A male voice. I'd thought nothing of it. There were no lights. No one could see anyone. Another brief glow sparked in the darkness. The person didn't hear an answer and spoke again. "Got a light?" I followed the voice and tossed my lighter toward him. No sound of it hitting the floor, he must have caught it. A few crisp clicks followed, but it didn't catch. I took the cigarette from my lips and walked toward him. "Your cigarette." In the darkness, I could vaguely make out long fingers holding one. Relying on memory, I tapped my ash into the tray and leaned toward him. The tips touched red, meeting red. The room was so quiet I could hear the spark catch, and someone's heartbeat loud. Once it was lit, I stepped back. He hesitated for a moment before putting it to his lips, only to choke on the first few drags. I laughed softly, clearly a beginner. The sound was faint, but in the silence, unavoidable. Embarrassed, he took a few more puffs, which ended in more coughing. I offered kindly, "Don't rush it." I finished my last few drags and prepared to leave. Behind me came another voice. "Your lighter." I didn't turn around, we'd never see each other again anyway. "Keep it. Goodbye." A few days later, I transferred abroad for an MBA. I stared at Luke in shock. With a cigarette between his lips, he tugged at the corner of his mouth, voice muffled. "Ring a bell?" He plucked my cigarette from my fingers and crushed both out. "That was you?" My surprise didn't embarrass him. If anything, he looked wronged. "For once, I actually liked someone, and all I got was a lighter, then she disappeared." He pulled a hand from his pocket, revealing a silver lighter. An old model from years ago, polished smooth from frequent touch. I froze, turning to look at him. For the first time, such direct affection pierced the stillness inside me. My whole life, anyone who approached me did so with motive, money, power. Even marrying Jason would have been out of suitability, not love. But Luke shattered everything I thought I knew. My hand tightened at my side, my throat constricting. Luke let out a soft laugh, sinking into the memory. Took me forever to find out the famous Miss Jennifer had transferred abroad. I wasn't even that into studying, but I thought she's so smart. If I don't catch up, wouldn't that be embarrassing? I already made a fool of myself once in front of her, can't do it twice. His eyes narrowed as he recalled those days. So I took tutoring, and kept asking people overseas about you. She won another award. She's top of her class. At least she's not dating. I flew over several times. Just didn't dare bother you. Based on the updates, I walked past your school, your apartment building, the cafes you liked. As he spoke, my routines unfolded in my mind and his shadow overlapped every one. Lecture halls, classrooms, corridors, cafes, my apartment. A dull life suddenly filled with color. On Christmas Eve, I overheard you say your future partner had to be strong enough to stand beside you. So I flew home that night. Took over Dawson Group faster than planned. I thought when she comes back, I'll show up as someone worthy. Someone who can say, "See, I'm not that bad." I wanted to ask, Miss Jennifer, would you consider me now? I hesitated for so long, afraid my feelings would inconvenience you. And then I heard you were getting married. Everything afterward I already knew. He arranged Bai Shanshan's return, stalled Jason, even staged a car accident on Jason's route. I remembered asking him, "Why did you give up someone you'd loved for years just to marry me?" Turns out he'd been planning everything for me all along. My whole life, I carried my family, my name, the Delaney legacy always forward. I never considered someone might see me as a lifelong wish moving toward me step by step. It wasn't true that I'd never heard of Luke. The circle was small. His wild reputation was infamous. Back then, I walked the path laid out for me. And in spare moments, hearing about him, I'd feel a hint of envy. He was so free. And now, that free wind had chosen to stop for me. Luke, rarely this vulnerable, was cut off by an urgent ringtone. After answering, his expression sharpened. My phone rang too. We exchanged a look, quickly excused ourselves, and returned to our companies. After so long with no news from Jason, he chose the moment Dawson Group was finalizing a major overseas deal to strike. He picked the perfect timing. Dawson had just poured funds into an S-tier project, leaving little liquidity. The overseas partners' withdrawal created a massive gap, and with supplies on hold, they were burning money by the minute. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the lights blazing in Dawson's top floor. Rationally, Delaney Group shouldn't get involved. But I dialed a number, staring into the night as if I could see him through it. Liquidate all my assets. A beat. Yes, all of them. I went downstairs, crossed the street, and entered his building. I took the executive elevator straight to Luke's office. His assistant stepped out, instinctively turning to knock. "No need. I brought supper. Share it with the team." I walked in. Luke stood by the window, one hand in his pocket, speaking in a crisp London accent. Just hearing the few sentences made me smile. Of course he was Luke. He wouldn't fall so easily. When the call ended, he didn't look surprised to see me. Handled? From what I heard, he'd already secured cooperation with a wealthier overseas partner. He nodded calm, unshaken. I set the supper on the table. Too bad I just had all my assets sold. Thought that if you went bankrupt, I'd buy you cheap. My rare teasing caught him off guard. Then realization dawned. Delaney Group couldn't help, but I could. Luke's stunned expression was almost comical. He blinked, swallowed, and joked weakly. Didn't expect you to worry about me so much. You even sold your dowry. You must really like me. Yes, I like you. I cut him off and finally said what had been buried inside me. At first, when I heard the crisis, I trusted his ability, but my heart still panicked. Selling assets to help him felt natural. Luke froze, completely stunned. Why you? What? Say it again? The composed CEO was gone, replaced by a flustered fool. I laughed, stepped closer, and gently tugged his cheek. I said, I like you. A firm pull at my waist, his deep voice brushing my ear. Again, I repeated patiently. I like you. A smile colored my tone. What? I said I like you, Luke. My back hit the cold glass wall. His hands braced behind my head and waist, shielding me. His strength pressed me forward, his body radiating heat, dangerous and intoxicating. For the first time in my life, I tasted fire and ice all at once. I refused to yield, looping my arms around his neck and pulling him down. The spacious office filled with warmth and shadows. Invitations soon went out across Kyoto again. Seeing the names, everyone was baffled. Luke and Jennifer? Weren't they already married? The idea of holding another ceremony was mine. The first wedding? Our hearts were elsewhere. This time, it was mutual, wholehearted. Every detail was chosen together. Dressed in a carefully chosen gown, I walked toward the man waiting for me. With a bright smile, Luke didn't even wait for my father to finish the handover. He stepped forward early. My father glared at him before placing my hand into his. I took Luke's arm. He bent slightly to straighten my train. Julia, attending the wedding, finally delivered the answer I'd asked her to investigate weeks ago. Back then, Luke kept asking around about who went up to the rooftop. I figured, hey, isn't that your usual spot? Why's Luke there too? After he found out, he quieted down. Total personality change. Grades shot up way past yours. We even joked maybe Luke got his heart broken and decided to devote himself to studying. Shame you transferred, you missed it. I looked at the man before me and spoke softly. Luke, marry me. His hands paused. Then he straightened, a wild grin spreading across his face. With pleasure. Luke had flown overseas to buy a priceless raw gem at auction. The stone for our wedding rings. It had a beautiful name, Dawnlight. Its meaning belonging to Jennifer. Miss Jennifer, in good times or bad, in wealth or poverty, in sickness or health, in joy or sorrow, do you take Mr. Luke as your husband? Looking at Luke, I smiled. I do. We exchanged rings. Holding his hand, I slowly slid the band onto his finger without hesitation. Years ago, Luke fell unknowingly into love. Years later, I was willing to give my heart to the wind that chose me.